Finding domain and range from graphs. Another way to identify the domain and range of functions is by using graphs. Because the domain refers to the set of possible input values, the domain of a graph consists of all the input values shown on the x-axis. The range is a set of possible output values which are shown on the y-axis. Keep in mind that if the graph continues beyond the portion of the graph we can see, then the domain and range may be greater than the visible values. So let's take a look at the graph here. Okay, when we want to find the domain, we're looking at all the x values according to the graph. So on the left side is where we start. On the x-axis we can see that it begins at -5. So, and it has a closed dot. And then the graph continues, goes down, goes down, goes down, and then has an arrow. So that means it's continuing on the x-axis to the right. So technically, when we write this, we're going to have a bracket because we're including the value of -5, and it's going towards infinity with a parenthesis. Now for the range, we want to look at all the possible output values which are on the y-axis. So again, on the graph, we're looking at the y-axis now. And so where do we see? Well, we see that it stops at 5. So we have a closed dot at 5. But the arrow continues downward. So it's not anything above the 5. So it's going downward towards this direction, going towards -infinity. So that means that our interval notation, we always start with the smallest number first, and the smallest number is -infinity in our range. So we have a parenthesis around that, and it's going to go all the way up to 5 with a bracket. So we can observe that the graph extends horizontally from -5 to the right without bound. So the domain is bracket -5 to infinity with a parenthesis. And the vertical extent of the graph is all range values 5 and below, so the range is -infinity to 5. Now note that the domain and range are always written from smaller to larger values, or from left to right for domain, and from the bottom of the graph to the top of the graph for the range.